Damian Wayne is the son of Batman and is the current Robin. And in the New 52 animated movies, it's easy to see what the filmmakers are trying to do with Damian Wayne's character. They want to make him the cool rebel who plays by his own rules, and yet is still skilled enough of a fighter that he can take down anyone. The problem is that they are trying way too hard to make us all think that Damian Wayne is tough, having him constantly antagonise everyone around him and acting in a cocky and threatening manner.
Hey! What is wrong with you?
Sadly, this doesn't really make the audience think that he's cool, as most of us just think that he's coming across as a bit of a dick. This is because the filmmakers are just trying, as I say, way too hard. Such as in the film Son of Batman, a film which seems to entirely exist just to make Damian Wayne look like a badass, as the film sees him fight fully grown men who are, quite frankly, just out of his weight class. Such as when Damien fights Ubu and throws away his weapon to fight him barehanded so that he can teach him a lesson. And then a small child then overpowers a guy who is over 6 feet and made out of nothing but muscle. Now, some might argue that Damien is skilled enough to beat him, but he doesn't use skill to fight him, he literally overpowers him. And to be honest, it just doesn't make sense, and it's incredibly unrealistic, as a child simply can't be this powerful. It's almost as silly as Damien declaring how good his hacking skills are.
I hacked into NORAD when I was 6. It was easy.
Now, we all expect a little bit of embellishment from our superheroes, because the whole point of them is to be larger than life. But if you take it too far, it just looks like the creators have no idea what they're doing. And there are many moments throughout the New 52 movies just like this. And so I've decided to put together a video which is going to go over Damian Wayne's 5 most overpowered moments in the New 52 animated films. Climbing the mountain. While Damien and Batman are flying over a range of mountains, Damien comments that he's been climbing them since he was 4 years old. Now, some of the greatest athletes in the world fail at climbing mountains, yet Damien does it at the tender age of 4. I mean, this is just stupid. I mean, it isn't a question of skill, it's just a matter of muscle and being in the right shape. Climbing a mountain like this takes a heavy toll on a person's body, and a 4-year-old just doesn't have the strength or the endurance that is required to do this. It's a matter of what it does to the body, the lack of oxygen, how to ration food so you can climb there. It's very, very difficult. And then Damien says that the first time he climbed one of the mountains, he fell and broke his wrist. But then he climbed to the top of the mountain anyway, since it was expected of him. Now, as any mountain climber will tell you, it is impossible to climb a mountain like this with a broken wrist. Even if you gave it your all, you just can't climb vertically upwards in the freezing cold like this. And if you did attempt it, you would end up messing your wrist up for the rest of your life, from the damage that you would cause by continuing to climb with it. I mean, it kind of sounds like Damien is just making it up for attention. And though it does actually sound pretty hardcore for a 4-year-old to be able to climb a mountain like this, well, walking up a mountain, yes, we could believe at the age of 4, but climbing a steep, frozen over mountain when you're only 4, it's just so unbelievable that it ends up making Damien seem like more of a parody of a superhero than an actual superhero himself. Damien versus Nightwing. Damien's first fight with Nightwing isn't actually that bad. In Son of Batman, the two meet for the first time and fight. And though the fight happens off screen, we learn that Damien is able to cut Nightwing with his sword a few times, but ultimately Nightwing does defeat Damien. Which does make sense, as Nightwing is a way more experienced fighter. Yes, Damien was trained to kill by the League of Assassins, but Nightwing was trained by Batman, and he has been a world-class athlete all of his life. And he is also a fully grown man in peak physical shape with incredible training. So even if their skill levels were actually at the same level, Nightwing would still win, because he has more experience and superior strength. But then, in the film Batman vs Robin, this is all ruined, as Damian and Nightwing are sparring in the Batcave, and again, much like the first time they fight, Nightwing has the upper hand, which again makes sense. But then, Damian Wayne starts fighting back with renewed vigour, and beating Nightwing, even knocking him off of a side and into a chair, declaring that he is the Blood Son, and thus better than Nightwing. And it is meant to look like Damien's just won the fight, but the fight isn't really over, all he's actually done is knock Nightwing back a bit. But then Nightwing does declare that he is indeed the Blood Son, the implication being that Damien has won the fight and that he is better than Nightwing. But in truth, he not only didn't win, he was only able to push Nightwing back by again using brute force. And a child cannot be this strong, it's just not possible. Yes, Damian Wayne is in peak physical condition, but so is Nightwing, and Nightwing is bigger. And when you've got muscles that are literally 2-3 times the size of Damian's, well, obviously they're going to be stronger, so Damian wouldn't be able to force him back. And you could say that Damian used skill to overcome him and take him down. And to land the punches that he does actually land on Nightwing, yes, he did use skill. But to throw a grown man backwards like he does requires power. Anyone who does say otherwise, and that you don't actually have to be that strong to throw someone across the room, has clearly never been in a real fight. And I'm not saying that Damian couldn't beat a normal thug who is bigger than him, because he could. He's got a lot of training, a lot of skill, and if he was fighting in the right way, he could easily take someone down who's bigger than him. That's not in question. But Damian can't be a fully grown man who has the same level of training and skill, which Nightwing does. And Damian might have Ra's al Ghul League of Assassins training, but as Nightwing says,
I was trained by Bruce Wayne, and every time they met, he kicked Ra's al Ghul's ass.
The 50-mile swim. In Son of Batman, Damian goes off on his own to face Deathstroke in his headquarters, which is an oil rig off the coast of Scotland, 50 miles away from the coast, and Damian swims it. A kid swims 50 miles non-stop in the ocean, and all he seems to have is a rebreather to provide him with oxygen, no other equipment, not even flippers. And to put this in perspective, I actually looked up the world's longest consecutive swim in the ocean without using flippers. And the record is held by Veljko Grosic, who swam 139.8 miles, and this took him 50 hours and 10 minutes. This means that the world record holder could swim 2.8 miles in 1 hour. Again, remember, this is in the ocean without any equipment to help him swim faster. So applying this to Damian, even if he was able to swim as fast as the world record holder, it would still take him around 18 hours to swim this 50 miles in the ocean. So Damian would go under an 18-hour swim, and then when he gets there, he faces down an army of ninjas and then wins. I mean, this is completely insane. Even the greatest athletes in the world who've trained their whole lives couldn't do this, let alone a child. Hell, even Batman couldn't do this. There's a reason he's got so many bat vehicles lying around, and it's not just because they look cool. And the idea that Damian could swim 50 miles straight and not even be out of breath when he arrives is just ludicrous. It doesn't make his character look good, it just makes us think that the writers haven't got a clue what they're doing. They haven't thought this through. They've clearly just picked an arbitrary number that they think sounds impressive, and then said, yeah, he can swim that. I mean, seriously, where is the suspension of disbelief? There has to be at least an element of reality in there for us to believe it's possible, and it just isn't there in these films. All they've done is make Damian's character completely unrealistic, which if he had superpowers would be fine because we could explain it, but he doesn't. He's just a normal human doing things which are, quite frankly, impossible. Damian vs Batman. Now, I did think of putting this as number 1, since Batman is essentially the best fighter that there is in the New 52 films. But I decided it shouldn't have the top spot for one simple reason. During the whole fight, Batman is holding back. And though it does appear they're actually going at it quite viciously, they aren't. Batman doesn't want to fight Damian, even if Damian does want to fight him. Batman even loses the fight so that he can protect Damian when the two of them fall off of a building. And after this, Damian holds a sharp piece of a tree over Batman, ready to stab him with it. And it looks like he's beaten Batman, and in a way he kind of has, which is what makes this moment so ridiculous, because even holding back, this is still Batman. He is trained with the greatest martial artists in the world, he is in custom-made body armour, and he is fighting a small child. Yes, that child is insanely good at fighting and incredibly well trained, and he does have his own custom-made armour. But he is still just a kid, and as such, Batman can easily beat him. Batman has fought some of the most powerful and skilled people alive, and won. Hell, he's fought Superman, and won. And yet, he can't beat a child. No, that's just not possible. So Damian winning this fight is silly, even with the two of them falling off of a roof, which is what does most of the damage. And with that being said, Batman would be fine after this fall. We know this because he has similar types of accidents and the amount of damage inflicted on him throughout the other New 52 movies. And we also know it because after this great fall that's apparently hurt him so badly, he carries on throughout the film without even getting medical attention. He seems to be completely fine without even having a limp. So Batman is clearly not that hurt and is just holding back because Damian is his son. Though there is one person who doesn't hold back at all when he's fighting him. Damian vs Deathstroke. In the beginning of the Son of Batman movie, Damian fights Deathstroke, just after Deathstroke has killed Ra's al Ghul, Damian's grandfather. Now Damien is furious and gets into a sword fight with Deathstroke, and he ends up piercing one of his eyes, half blinding him, and forcing him to retreat. Now, the idea of a small child facing down a master ninja who could square off against Batman is nothing short of ridiculous, as Deathstroke is in his battle armour with all of his gadgets. He is a full-grown man in peak physical condition, and one of the finest fighters and assassins in the world. And yet, a small child is able to beat him and half blind him. I know that the film's plot did demand this, but it's completely unbelievable. And yet, it gets even worse. At the end of the film, both Deathstroke and Damien, who is now Robin, are fighting, and Deathstroke is not holding back at all. In fact, he's actually been waiting to fight Damien, and he is going at it full tilt and throwing everything he has at Robin. And yet Robin keeps managing to get the upper hand. And to me, the stupidest part is when Deathstroke pins Damien to a wall by piercing his arms with blades, and basically nailing Damien to the wall through his arms. Deathstroke then taunts Damien, and the rage that Damien feels allows him the strength to rip through one of the blades. Now, he does actually pull the other blade out, he doesn't rip it through his flesh. And if someone actually did this to themselves, ripping apart their flesh like this, they could bleed out in minutes, even if they immediately got proper medical treatment. But Damien doesn't care. He doesn't even notice or bother to patch up the wounds. He just carries on fighting, ignoring the fatal injury that he's just inflicted on himself, even though his blood should be gushing out of him, especially in a fight that would have his heart furiously pumping. Yet Damien still manages to fight, losing nearly no blood whatsoever. It's as though Damien has Wolverine's healing factor, which is literally the only explanation for why he hasn't bled to death. Not to mention the fact that the ligaments in his arm would have been severed by these blades, meaning he wouldn't even be able to hold a sword, let alone fight with one. For those of you who don't already know, your fingers are controlled by ligaments that are in your arm. In fact, if you make a fist or just flex your fingers, you'll actually be able to see these ligaments moving under your skin, in your arm and by your wrist. And without these ligaments, Damien wouldn't even be able to have grabbed the sword that he pulled out of his arm. He wouldn't be able to hold a sword at all. And since Damien has no healing factor, this is a major overpowering moment, because he should be dead. He has literally just been fatally wounded. He should be dead. And of course, Damien doesn't die. He then goes on to defeat Deathstroke, something which seems unlikely if Damien was in perfect form, let alone in this damaged state that he's in. And then, oddly enough, in Teen Titans The Judas Contract, Damien fights Deathstroke again, but this fight is a bit more realistic, with Damien getting in a few good hits, but with Deathstroke using his superior size and strength to beat Damien down. So even though Damien is actually older here and more skilled, he's actually become a worse fighter with age, which doesn't really add up when you think about it. And part of me does want to complain about this being inconsistent with the character they've established, but to be honest with you, The Judas Contract was actually a pretty good film, and I think it had the best rendition of Damian Wayne, at least that we've seen so far in the New 52 films. And I must admit, I'm actually quite glad that they've kind of addressed Damien being overpowered and made him a bit weaker, as it does make his character a lot more interesting to watch. And that is Damian Wayne's 5 most overpowered moments. Now, one thing that I do have to say about these over-the-top moments is that they are only taken from the New 52 movies. In the New 52 comic books and the Rebirth comic books, Damien is actually a much more believable character. His abilities are still stronger than they should be, of course, after all it is still comics, but they are not quite as ridiculously over-exaggerated as the New 52 movies have made them out to be. And a lot of people would also say that Damian Wayne is able to do these things because he was enhanced when he was in the womb. And this is true, at least in the comics, as Damian Wayne was enhanced to not only be in perfect peak physical condition, but to be stronger than a normal child his age could possibly be. Which kinda means that he went through a super soldier serum, much like Deathstroke and Captain America has. But even with these enhancements, his movie antics are still way over the limit of what he should be able to do. And so far in the films, it hasn't even been said that he's had the same enhancements that he does in the comics. In fact, in Batman Bad Blood, the heretic basically says that he hasn't been enhanced.
I've had the flaws bred out of me. But you're just a boy.
But still, it is possible that the heretic was wrong or lying, or that this will be retconned later on, and Damien may have been enhanced in the films just like he was in the comics, which may explain at least parts of his over-the-top abilities. But what do you think? Would these enhancements account for Damien's extra strength and abilities? Or is Damien just way overpowered a character in these films? Be sure to let us know in the comments, and I'd just like to say a quick thank you to those who made this video possible by donating to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.